One day, office mates noticed that their coworker Steve did not take breaks at the proper time at work. A lunch came and went, and he would skip it. Sometimes he would eat lunch late. A lot of times he would eat lunch right at his desk. And they even tried inviting him out to a new restaurant that opened up around the corner, the cuisine that he absolutely loves, and he would still turn them down. So once he took a short break right around lunchtime, went to the bathroom, and when he came back to his desk, his chair was missing. On his computer was a post-it note which read, "Do not search for your chair. You will not find it. Take a lunch break now. Your chair will not reappear unless you leave your desk for a minimum of 45 minutes. Signed, your office mates." And in parentheses, and yes, no cheating because we're watching you. Some of us have to be told to take breaks. Can you believe that? You would think that that would be something we might want to do. It's a wonderful thing. But some of us get so focused, we need to be told to take a break. And so our weekly reading opens with instructions about Shemitah. Shemitah is a sabbatical year. It's a year you're supposed to take rest. And also instructions about Yovel, a Jubilee year, follow. The commandments are fairly simple. Leviticus 25:2 says, "Ki tavu el ha'aretz asher ani noten lechem." When you enter the land that I'm giving you, "V'shavta ha'aretz Shabbat l'Adonai." The land shall have Adonai's Shabbat. So verse 4 adds, "B'shana hashvi'i Shabbat Shabbaton." On the 7th year, a Sabbath of complete rest. I don't think any one of us reading these words would struggle too much understanding what they are about. It's quite clear. God tells Israelites to follow the weekly pattern of Shabbat, which by that point everyone knows. People have been living it. You take a break every 7th day, but now you follow that pattern into a year. You take a break every 7th year. You take a break from working the land. No harvesting for commercial purposes. No long-term storage or preservation of the harvest either. Israelites are allowed to eat the fresh produce that is growing just kind of on its own. But beyond that, they're not supposed to pick up anything besides what they need just for that one day. They can eat fresh things that just grow wildly by themselves, but they're not allowed to cultivate. They're supposed to abstain from any sort of a labor that would be intentional management of what grows just naturally by itself. So, fairly simple commandments. And taking a break from cultivating the land, as I read that sounds really nice. It sounds really attractive and good in theory. But as you think on the flip side, how it can impact you economically in a major way. Taking a break for a whole year from cultivating and planting and pruning and all the things that go into that entire agrarian enterprise. Now, most of us here are not farmers today. Maybe some of us have some farming experience, but we can see the implications of taking this step of faith, and it is a step of faith. Taking a break from commercial activity for an entire year, a whole year off, that's a serious challenge because we have to trust that God will provide. And he tells us in the Torah right there, he says, don't worry, I will provide. I will, just trust me, I will make up the difference. Whatever you think that you're missing out on, I will bless you so much, you'll have more than enough. And I appreciate those words in the Torah very much because they're encouraging. But it's still a challenge. So Shemitah, rest, requires a lot of faith. It really is a step of faith. And Jubilee, that's another commandment that requires even more faith and even more obedience and trust in Hashem. So that's why I called my drash, rest is trust. Think about it. For those of us who are like Steve in my story, they need such commandments. You would think that's a, easy commandment to follow. But some of us need it. Nothing short of a divine decree or someone stealing our office chair for an hour will actually do. We won't rest until somebody makes it a point to direct us and guide us, sometimes in a very forceful way in that direction. So if you're one of those people who needs to be told to take a break, and that's a drash for me too, myself, I include myself in that category, I have a few observations for you that will benefit you and everyone else in this room perhaps. And I'll try to help you steer away a little bit from the agricultural context a little bit, because most of us are not farmers, and that's hard for us to connect with living in an urban life that we do today. Look at rest as an exercise of trust. Look at rest as trust. God has already made rest spiritual. So I don't need to justify it. Sometimes people justify taking a break. Let's put it this way. It is unspiritual not to rest, according to what Hashem teaches us. So it's simple. Live the commandments. As I said, some of us need that in the commandment form. Otherwise, we won't do it. Taking a break essentially says, I'm letting go and giving that control to God. God is in charge, and me taking a break is not going to make this world come apart. I can step aside and everything will be just fine. The world will go on. So Shabbat was made a mitzvah, a commandment, a prohibition for stubborn and driven people, and really a pattern, so we never lose sight of it. It's made to teach us something, to create in us a particular habit. Which brings me to point number 2. Rest is not always even for you. Rest is not always even for you. Some people will say, I don't want to rest, I'm not tired, I'm fine. Well, notice that the Torah says right here that God instituted Shemitah year for the land. It's not even for you to take a break, it's for the land to take a break. Not even for people. In Torah, the land holds a special status. It's treated as if it's something almost alive. You can abuse it, essentially. You can mistreat it. People don't think of inanimate things as being like that, being mistreated and abused, but the land is alive. That's how Torah looks at it. So yes, it has that kind of a status. It must rest. Now, sometimes the breaks we take are not only for our direct benefit, they're actually for others. And that's what I think this passage about Shemitah can show us. Maybe it's for your spouse because they desperately need a break. And they need a break from routine. And maybe they miss your companionship and you're supposed to take a break because of that. Maybe it's for your children or for your friends who desperately need your time or just an open ear or just your friendship. Maybe that's what that break is about. It's not always about you. Yeshua taught us that Shabbat was made for humans. And it must bring us healing, delight, restoration, in general good, not stress. So yes, it is for us, but it's also for all people around us. Point number 3. When we talk about Yovel, Jubilee, we're talking about a really long-term recovery. And recovery requires extended rest. If you need recovery, if something is not right, you may need an extended rest. Taking a day off is beneficial on many levels. Taking 2 days off is beneficial, but sometimes that's just not long enough. So extended times of rest allow us for healing and recovery. Sometimes that's a process that lingers. So occasionally, because things go wrong and we don't rest, we are forced to take extended breaks. I think our body's way of telling us that we need a break sometimes is just simply getting sick. And then we're forced to take that break. Well, what if we just recognize that fact and follow the pattern, do it voluntarily, and not put ourselves in a position so that our body has to force us to take a break? Let's take that lesson, because I think this is what this year of Jubilee idea also teaches us on a personal level. Recovery requires sometimes an extended rest. And so taking a sabbatical year, that will definitely bring some recovery, some restoration. Point number 4 is true change needs time. Why is Shemitah so important? Why is it so long? Why is it a whole year? Why is there a Yovel, 49 years, and then the 50th year is this big break, essentially? Well, it's because sometimes we get stuck in a rut, and we cannot get out of it. Have you ever been there? Have you ever been like stuck and you can't get out of it? But our constant routine, what we're doing without stop, will not allow us to even see a better way to do something differently and to step out of it. It's like we keep doing the same thing and it's not working, but we can't come up with something else to do. So we keep doing it again over and over. We cannot step off of the moving treadmill of life without initiating the shutdown mode. You have to hit that button and make it slow down. And then when it stops, you can get off of it. So a lot of times we're trying to bring changes into our life while we're still running the regular course. And that doesn't work. Sometimes what we need is to affect a real change, is a true break. Step away. Stop the treadmill. That's why I think sabbatical year was instituted. That's why I think Yovel came to be. It's a moment for changes. Yovel, Jubilee, changed everything. There were so many structural changes in society. You're talking about debts being forgiven, properties transferring back to the people. It takes time to do this restorative process, so you have to pause everything. And so sometimes that's what we need. Without continuing to move, we simply need to pause, make the changes that we need to make, have them take root, and then move on to a new stage of life. So Hashem knows what we need better than we do. I hope you realize that. I know I do. I remember how Yeshua said to the crowds these words, "Come to me, you who are burdened, and I will give you rest. My yoke is easy, my burden is light." I think he still says that to us today. Do you trust God enough to experience Shabbat restoration? Do you trust God enough? Because taking rest is an exercise in trust.